welcome to the Vanier Woodshop. I'm Mr. Dakinowicz, and today we're going to talk about the router. Specifically, we're going to demo the router table, but we're going to show a couple different types of routers. So routers come in about 3 or 4 different sizes that are fairly common. We have small routers. This is called a trim router or a pony router. It's small. It only takes a 1/4 inch shank bit. It's easily held in the hand and can be worked really well for doing edges on small projects. We then have a bigger 1/2 horsepower router. This one is a little bit larger. You can use either 1/2 inch shank bits or 1/4 inch shank bits. Again, handheld, you can work. Then these two, you would clamp your material down and you would move the router around it. We'll demo these more in class when it comes time for you to actually use one. The third type of router that we're going to talk about is the table router. So the table router looks like this. It's a bigger 1.5 horsepower router. It sits nicely into the slot in the table. And when it's in, you have a big work surface. Now my router is stationary and I move my piece around on the table. So you'll notice that there are some words written on the router table. It says feed a couple different places and it's pointing from right to left. That's because our bit is rotating when we're looking down at it counterclockwise. What that means is we're always going to feed against the rotation of the bit. Now, a couple things to remember when you're looking at different sizes of bits. Bits come in everything from small roundover bits like this to larger bits like this, which would be used for a table, a panel, for a door panel. Now, if you were doing something large like this, you would end up actually removing your material in multiple passes. So you would start just lightly coming into the bit until you've removed the whole thing. You wouldn't try and do it all in one pass. That would be probably very problematic, and you would have a tendency for that to catch or throw your wood. A smaller bit like this roundover, which is a 1/4 inch roundover, easily can be done in one pass. We've got our same piece of wood that we've been machining for the last couple of days. We're now going to put an edge on that. As you can see in my very disarrayed pack of router bits, we have many different types, so you can always find a profile. If you've ever been to Grandma or Grandpa's house and they've got a beautiful old china cabinet or a really fancy coffee table, it's probably got a really ornate edging on it or around it. That's done with a router, so now you know how that's done. So we'll get these things out of the way and we'll talk a few more things about safety. The router is one of the loudest tools in the shop. It's something that you definitely want to have eye and hearing protection for. I've got my hearing protection right here. I'll put it on before I make my cut. Now, things I want to remember. So if I'm looking at my router, my fingers never want to be in this red circle or within about 2 inches of that spinning blade. The blade is spinning really quickly at about 23,000 RPM. It will remove wood very easily, but it could also remove skin. So we want to make sure that we're not too close to that with our hands. So on something like this, we would turn the router on, let it wind up to full speed. Once it's running full speed, we would then slowly feed our material in. We could do the pass. Right now my fingers would be too close to the bit, so I would actually bring it in, move my hands away, make another pass, probably another one. There, my fingers are too close again, so I would then finish like this, and then my last pass would be to get that tail end all cleaned off. This is going to put a nice round over on. The one thing that I want to be concerned about is my fingers need to be within about 6 inches, but no closer than 2. And what that means is if it's too far away, if I just tried to push it like this, I would have this almost like a diving board. It would start to chatter. So I do need to make sure that I'm holding my material firmly to the table and that I'm feeding against the rotation of the bit. So let's demo that and then we'll talk about a couple more things. So I'm just going to put on my hearing protection, turn on my router, and the last thing that I should mention before I finish is when I finish my cut, I want to move my material away from the router, the spinning bit, and then shut my machine off. I don't want to shut it off while I'm still in contact with the bit. So I'm going to ease this in, make my cut, come away. wait for this to stop. Because as we've talked about, all machines need to come to a stop before I can finish. You can now see that this has a nice round over profile on it. The one thing you noticed is that I constantly made cuts, pulled away from the cutter, and then went back in. That's fine with a router. The nice thing about a router is you can always go over it more than once because of this follow bearing. That board will never get closer than the bearing, so it'll never remove too much material. You don't want to move too slow with a router because it will burn, and you don't want to push it through as fast as you can either, because if you do that, it will have the tendency to really chip out. So you want a constant, easy, a moderate pace. And if you have any questions about the router as we move forward, or if it's your turn to use the router and you're a little bit worried about it, please ask me. I'm happy to come over and have a quick chat with you or show you how to do it just one-on-one so that you know and you feel comfortable. As with any tool in the Vanu woodshop, if you're feeling uncomfortable, please ask. Don't just use something without being comfortable or without knowing what to do. Always ask for help. Safety is our most important thing. We want everybody to be safe and healthy and happy when they leave the shop, just as when they come in. Thanks a lot. I hope you have a great day.